Good morning. In 2014, the Harvard Business Review published a paper, Why China Can't Innovate. Harvard represents the establishment wisdom, conventional wisdom, and it was a solid representation of the conventional wisdom of that time. It can be summed up here. 700 million people were raised from deep poverty by brute force imitation, they call it. China was determined to catch up to the rest of the world. And that meant copying what other countries did really well. And that became their reputation, that their success was simply an imitation of what was working everywhere else. But almost right away, that point of view ran into real world problems. By 2016, 8 of the 10 global companies that hit $1 billion in valuation in the shortest time, they were Chinese companies. And 6 of those 8 companies were founded in 2014, which is when this article was written. So what happened? Harvard has since published another piece where they try to redeem themselves, and they conclude now that we were measuring innovation wrong. In the old models, using the old models of innovation, the US is still on top. But in other ways, China has achieved parity at least. And it's not our idea of what innovation is that matters very much here. What matters in China is people, and specifically, how much change the Chinese people have experienced in such a short time. Harvard employs here some data from the World Bank, and it's a chart of the Living Change Index. It's per capita growth in GDP in the past 30 years. Per capita means per person. So what they're measuring here, country by country, is how much economic production has gone up per person in the 30 years from 1990 to 2019. China is more than 30 times, dwarfing literally everybody. The United States is at 2.7 times. And we Americans can remember many of those changes since 1990. The internet, portable phones, smartphones, and so on. And all of these are productive tools that really supercharged our GDP and our per capita GDP. And our per capita GDP grew by 2.7 times. China's growth was 32 times. And here are some examples which are ridiculous. China laid more concrete in 3 years than the United States did in 100 years. China went from 1 refrigerator per 100 rural households to basically everybody. 5.5 million cars to 270 million. 3/4 of Chinese living on farms to 2/3 living in cities in 30 years. When you look at side-by-side photographs, comparisons of this city, Qingdao, or Shanghai, or Shenzhen, it's shocking to see it as an outsider, from the outside. And here they ask, what was it like to have lived it? What would these transformations do to how Chinese people think? How would it affect their attitude about progress, about what government and technology can do, how business works, how easy to build and to create when all you've seen in your day-to-day life is new buildings and new cities from nowhere, 32 times in 30 years. Harvard uses an example here of electronic payments using smartphones. Apple Pay has 383 million users with the app installed. I have it too. I've just never used it. Less than a quarter of iPhone users have ever used Apple Pay. But WeChat in China is basically universal. It's the everything app. Their data are from 2018. WeChat did over 1 billion transactions a day. Apple does less than that in a whole month. In 2019, Chinese spent $54 trillion using mobile apps on smartphones, 551 times what Americans did, 551. Innovation should be judged by people's willingness to use them. And it's there that China has no equal. It's innovation is not merely great ideas that are put to the marketplace. It's the ideas that take over markets, that become a permanent feature of life. That's how we should be looking at what innovation means. And in China, it's just easier because of how much change the Chinese have seen. There are 700 million Chinese citizens under the age of 40. Most of them don't even remember 1990. They don't remember when Shanghai Pudong was just farms instead of Lujiazui. They don't remember when Shenzhen was a fishing village instead of the place where 90% of the world's electronics come from. They don't remember any of it. 1990 may as well be ancient history to them. And that simply has to make a big difference in how they see the whole world. Links are in the video description below. Speaking of Shanghai Lujiazui, that's the goodbye video coming today. Be good.
Store up for yourself treasure in heaven. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. No man can serve two masters. You cannot serve God and money. So do not be worried about your life, what you will eat, or what you'll drink, or what you'll wear.